never knock Giglio's hustle. He found a way to. How many interns do we have now?
We have two technically, but once James gets to ECU, he'll also be.
So we'll have 3 interns?
Yes.
Well,
we might lose calculus with Cal.
Okay, well,
he's going to have a real life at some point.
Intern Cal is in studio with us, and he truly is taking the intern mantle to heart. You brought us coffee, dude. You didn't have to do that.
Of course, and breakfast.
He's like, let the record do it.
I want to make sure that's on the table.
All right, that is on the table. So last week, when we were talking about quarterback height in relation to Bryce Young, we kind of got on a tangent about baseball.
Of course.
So you're a Yankee guy. As evidenced by your, what's up with the Yankee jersey?
No, yeah, I'm a Yankee fan. My family's from New York, originally.
Okay.
They're not big baseball fans. So when I decided I like baseball, I had to pick either the Yankees or the Mets.
You had to rep.
Oh yeah, nobody ever actually chooses the Mets, right?
Well, I mean, older fans who were Dodgers fans.
That's what I'm saying. You're born into that.
Yeah.
Like to me, the Mets are kind of like NC State. You're born into being a Mets fan.
Yes.
Jets fan. You and I only know one person who is a strange Mets Giants fan.
Yes.
Shout out to the Wheezy. All right. Shout out to the Wheezy. It is a weird combination. Yeah. And the reason why that combination exists is because apparently his parents did not give a damn about football.
Oh,
so it allowed him to pick his football team. And if given the choice, who would you pick?
And they would have been long gone by then too.
Yeah.
Once the Jets left Shea, I can actually see some people being like, okay, well, they're not the Long Island team anymore.
Yeah, I could see that. So we gave you an assignment last week to talk about payroll.
Yes.
And the Mets, speaking of which, are they're going through it right now. Steve Cohen, the owners, had press conferences.
And he's going through it too. I love it.
I think it's not in a bad way. No, I'm with you on this. I think it's actually great that he's open about this. He'll tweet. He will hold a press conference. He will say, yeah, this is unacceptable. So in a lot of ways, I'm happy that he's breaking Major League Baseball's money situation. The owners are mad. I love that he makes other owners mad by spending money. And I love that he's open about the fact that, we've screwed up. We're not good right now.
I love that the spotlight in terms of mediocrity is not on the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are mediocre.
The Yankees are.
The Mets doing worse is great.
So I gave you this. This assignment, and you came
with the pronoun usage. At some point, man.
What?
I'm
pretty sure I was the one who gave him the assignment. I called him your intern.
We might have to check the film.
We will have to check the film. I called him your intern.
So it can be ours.
No, it's your intern. Because you want a car too. You want interns.
I want a car.
You want a car.
A company car.
Next thing you know, we're gonna have a net jet. I mean,
but no, I don't like flying.
You don't like flying? Okay.
No.
So are we gonna get a Madden cruiser then to take us to various?
We should. Why? I don't understand why you think it's so outlandish.
I think it's outlandish. Regardless,
it's another day.
We gave you an assignment. Giglio's going to break me of this.
There we go.
He's going to break me of this. So we gave you an assignment. What is the Major League Baseball highest payroll to underperform? And I think we're witnessing history. Is that what I'm getting?
We are witnessing history. So there's a very interesting breakdown in these stats. That happens at about 2000, where teams start spending a lot more money.
Mm-hmm.
But, even with that in mind, yes, we are witnessing history. The 2023 Mets, in terms of the amount of millions of dollars they've had to spend per win, they've spent $0.2 million per win. So that is by far the lowest. The only other team that is kind of close is the 2017 Tigers, which, interestingly enough, also featured Justin Verlander. So, I don't know if he's the problem, but I mean, there's a bunch of
so you're
Dodgers
blaming
Yankees
Verlander for this
too. I mean, there's a bunch of Dodgers Yankees teams, so I can't exactly blame him completely.
Okay,
but it's just a weird coincidence.
That is an interesting coincidence, to say the least. Yeah. Now, in terms of all right, so you
did wins per million.
So,
and you also adjusted for inflation.
I did adjust for inflation. Yes.
Okay.
So
Cal's not fooling around.
That just kind of gets everything to to even basis there.
So all right. So you have a post 2000, pre 2000. Why?
Yes. Because I couldn't really spotlight what the exact historical reason was, but I have a couple of guesses. So in 1998, 1999, payrolls just skyrocket, and the obvious explanation would be the business of sports and entertainment, increases as the turn of the 21st century happens and contracts get big.
And say television contracts.
Yeah,
exactly.
That matters. Right.
And the specific reason I would argue as a Yankees fan would be the fact that the Yankees were so good and three-peated that, everybody else felt like they had to compete. So they started spending more money. I'm not sure how legitimate that is, but anyway, after.
But wait a second. There might be something to that in terms of when the Yankees created the Yes Network. Remember, they were the first to have their own network. Yes. And then all they did was basically have a regionalized cable deal. So there was nothing preventing the Reds from having a regionalized cable deal. There's nothing preventing these other teams from having their own hustle. So I do think there is something to what you're saying there, and that it was spurred by the Yankees and their success, but also the Yes Network.
Mm-hmm. And the Yankees have just spent by far so much more money than any other team historically. The Dodgers kind of come close, but the Yankees are there's a lot of entries on that list of the lowest wins.
And they haven't won it since 2009.
Unfortunately.
Because we're talking about two different things here, right? We're talking about actually winning the whole thing.
Winning.
And having a winning team.
Yes.
Like, which we would all consider the Rays to be a successful franchise at this point, right?
Of course.
But they haven't won the World Series.
But yeah, it's all relative.
It feels like the thread of today's show.
And that is,
what is success and what is acceptable and what do we think of as success? What do we define as success?
Yeah, I do think it is all relative to your organization, and it's relative to your own history, and it's relative to how much money you're going to be spending as well. Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, clearly wants to win, and he feels that spending a bunch of money is the way to do it. But how many times have we seen instances where you spend that amount of money and it doesn't necessarily
mean get the return?
You're going to get that return. Just because you spend a lot of money doesn't mean you're making good decisions. All right. And I think that's what kind of bothers me with how we talk about sports in this day and age, and that we correlate money spent on success. Speaking of college football, we get obsessed over the amount of money that's being made in the SEC. Well, you brought up Texas to tie it back to Matt Rule and Texas and the amount of talent that rides in Texas. They've gone through how many coaches since Mac Brown left? And they haven't been able to get any traction.
At least, right?
Right. And even at the end, Mac Brown was kind of bumping up against it because of maybe misfiring on talent evaluation or
not the right quarterback out of the state of Texas.
That kind of matters too, right? So Texas has all the money in the world, and yet how many college football playoff appearances do they have?
0.
Bingo. So I wish we would break ourselves of this mindset that if you spend a bunch of money, Carolina Hurricanes are a good example of this too. There's a difference between being a cap team and then being smart with the money that you're spending.
Well, we should also
weaponizing the cap.
We should also point that out with Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
There's no salary cap.
There is no salary cap. There's a luxury tax, but yet
though, baseball's had the most variety of champions though in the last 20 years, right?
And
right?
Those teams always operate within a certain bracket in terms of wins per million. It's between about like 0.3 and 0.8 or so. So they're definitely spending a lot of money. But it is notable that, the Dodgers have one World Series victory, since for forever. And the Yankees, won the last time in 2009, and they're the two highest spending teams. So, a lot of variety, and a lot of people are spending high levels of money, but there is a correlation between spending more and not being able to seal the deal and win the series.
Joe, will you pull the chart up back real quick, just because I want to illustrate one point here so calculus with Cal here. Cal, our intern. The number one team is the Pirates. And I can't see it, Joe. With that, you're too small.
You want me to? Well, it's not the first time I've heard that.
All right. So the 87 Pirates, you're saying, are the most in terms of wins per million.
Yes.
The 87 Pirates are the most efficient economic team in the history of baseball, or at least back to 84.
They are the most efficient economic team, and that's what's interesting about this stat is because they blow away every single other team. They have 7 wins per million spent. The next closest is like 6.4. So they are by far, like you said, Joe, the most economically efficient team. But they came 4th in the NL East in that year, 1987. They didn't even come close to the playoffs.
At the time, there was no wild card.
No.
Yeah.
It was all divisional winners. They wouldn't have even come close to the wild card. Even at that point in time, they got like 60 wins or something like that. So it's almost like a bell curve, right? Where the less you spend, you're pretty much guaranteed to not be successful, even if you have a high wins per million. But the more you spend, there's a little bit less of a correlation there. So found that pretty interesting, which is why, it's helpful to kind of look at those numbers from the perspective of before the turn of the century and after the turn of the century, just to get some context.
Okay. It's also important to note that in 1980s, so they went 80 and 82, right? Yeah. That's the year they go 80 and 82. The Cardinals went 95 and 67. The Mets, who had one of the all-time teams, went 92-70, didn't make the playoffs, right? It's important to note, though, like the most, and this gets me back to the Moneyball point where people were like, okay, cool. You went and got Hattie Berg and he likes to walk and you worked the count and all this other crap.
Yeah.
But you had these pitchers on a team-friendly deal.
Yeah.
And they were really good pitching.
Yeah.
You look at the 87 Pirates, you go, well, wait a second. Who was on the 87 Pirates? And you know my opinion of Barry Bonds. Truth of the matter is, Barry Bonds is the best all-around baseball player in history. In Major League Baseball history.
Yeah.
So you basically had Barry Bonds on an entry-level deal. So of course you are the most economically efficient team of all time. You have the most talented player, not quite at the peak of his height, at the peak of his powers yet, in terms of, where he was about to produce. I'm not even talking about the crazy post-steroid numbers. I'm talking about what he actually did with the Giants with the Pirates when he was an MVP, he was an all-star and all those good things.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny to me though. Like Cal knew nothing about that, right? He was just spitting out the numbers. And it's funny to me to put those numbers in context.
Pitching's actually a really interesting variable. Like the more money saved on like high quality pitching is huge. Even now, more significant than other positions by far. Because I mean, you look at the 2012 Giants. I think it was the 2012 Giants who won the series, and they Madison Bumgarner, they had him on a good contract, and they had a pretty high amount of wins per million. Like they spent less money overall, but they were able to get the job done because they had high quality pitching, because that's where they chose to allocate their money. I think you can make the same argument for the Rays with McClanahan in particular.
I was just saying, it feels like where the Rays are really making their hay right now in pitching. And it seems like every year they lose a pitcher, then that pitcher goes away, and then they're not that good.
Yeah.
I would love for the Rays to win it.
Are you saying pitching matters in baseball?
I'm saying, look at all of the Yankees. The number one thing I was excited about for the Yankees this year
is only as good as the next day's pitcher.
Yeah, but how excited I was that the Yankees actually went out and got Carlos Rodon.
Yes,
and now of course with the injury and not being able to see him pitch, and I don't know how effective he's going to be.
Yeah,
it's just like watching the playoffs last year. They ended up beating the Guardians, but I'm looking at the Guardians bullpen and I'm going, why do the Yankees not have a bullpen that looks like this? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to us either. Aaron Boone,
Well, he should be gone.
I was going to say,
Joe over there was like, no, you got to have patience with Aaron Boone. Last year, I'm ready to fire his ass.
Yeah, you were ready to fire his ass. Yeah, you were ready to fire his ass. I mean, at least you have the home run king, right?
The true
king of the North.
Yeah.
On that note, we're out of here. Cal, appreciate the coffee and the breakfast, man.
Of course.
Okay. Do we have another assignment for Cal?
Well, you can give him assignment for next week.
Okay.
All on your own, since I will not be here. Maybe there is something to recruits in the state of North Carolina compared to Texas or
that'd be interesting.
Florida, or maybe you can do something else.
Maybe there's a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star correlation.
Ooh. All of that's on the 247 site. So
it is. All right. Well, here's our assignment for you.
In real time.
In real time.
Again,
here's our
second week in a row.
We'll do this next week.
But on the record, Joe's giving it to me this time. But Joe
Ovies.
Yeah,
we collectively have decided this during this segment. Let's see who's had the most college football success in the state based on stars. So fewest amount of stars, most success.
Cool.
I think that's a development issue. Like you're turning guys. I think it'll be an interesting correlation of who's actually developed players versus who's brought in talent.
So you can probably only go back to like 00 or 01 or 02. I mean, that's fine.
We got to remember it's 2023 now. That's
still 20 years of data.
It's 20 years of data. You're right. Like we have to. You and I especially have to get out of this mindset that the year 2000 was just 5 years ago. No. The year 2000 was 20 years ago. All right. So somebody like Cal, he's
ancient history. He's like, who's this Phillip Rivers person?
I started following sport 2007. I know my stuff. I remember my Patriots beating Phil Rivers in the AFC Championship, and then
your Patriots. Get out of here! How many Yankees jersey on him?
It's a complicated, legitimate answer.